Armada Book 5 Chapter 5 The Insertions Part 1. The day after their successful but error-filled first foray through the DG at Andrew's backyard, Roden and Gantley beamed in. Then Prince Bominat, Tonin and Binaton beamed in with Manpat, Akinpat, Sarudam and Junie. GX1, with Tony and Layla, Ambassador Gilkin and then Rogan, Julia and Timmy appeared. Bronny and Chilla beamed in. Ellie, Linda and Lasheen were already there. Bronny, Chilla, welcome to my backyard. Andrew declared. I read that most of the major decisions affecting the galaxies were made here. Bronny said. This is a self-serve meeting. We have coffee, tea, wine, brandy and other refreshment on that table over there. Andrew said. Chilla noticed some of the aliens were busy at that table. After getting something they sat at a long white table in the middle of several tables and chairs. Roden, I think that you should start the meeting. Andrew said. Harold beams in with 2 women and 3 men. Harold greeted the group. Hi guys, we came as early as we could. Andrew, Roden, guys, this is Marijus Rivera, White House Chief of Staff, this is General Arnold Matthews, Armed Forces Chief of Staff, Secretary of State Jim Rhodes and Vice President Ronald Morgan. I want them to be in on the meeting. Just as he finished, Albert, Hans and Daisy beams in. Andrew and the others took time to welcome the newbies in the meeting. Roden, you can proceed. Andrew said. Okay, Olive, please show the galaxies from the Krentellus all the way to the Maccabee groups. Wow, that is so huge. Roden said. He previously talked to Olive about the galaxy visuals. Roden continues, this is Andrew's area of operations. Andrew and I discussed this a month ago and several more times later, and we asked for this meeting to show you what we see about this. He walked to the middle of the hologram and stretched his long arms. From here to here is almost 36.8 BLY. Earlier last year we were faced with the problem of overextending our armada. Then the Maccabees came into our galaxies and this practically doubled the whole sphere, stretching our forces further. The contact of several new planets and several new kingdoms decimated the armada. We were involved in technology transfer, military training, medical missions and so on. Of course lately they have started to return. But we still have armada people working around this area here, from this area here to the Maccabees. He nodded to Andrew, who stood up. I am sure you guys already know this. Roden just wants to talk about something, but we all know you already know that, but because we are all civil, we let him talk. Andrew said, and they laughed. But then you also know already what I will talk about, but I will talk anyway because I know you are all courteous and you would let me talk, especially since you are all in my backyard. More laughs. Andrew continued, we intend to create military areas. Olive, please show the areas. Olive showed color-shaded areas in the various galaxies. The armada will be cut into 5 major groups, or which we can call as galaxy groups, as represented by the various colors here. This red area will be the area for the first galaxy group under Eric, this yellow will be run by the second galaxy group under Gantley, the green or third galaxy group under Tonin, the green or fourth galaxy group under Sarudam and the orange or fifth galaxy group under Billy. As you know, before we left the Maccabee galaxies, Roden and I have discussed this with the GX teams and with the Maccabee Grand High Council, and we agreed to leave Billy to head the Maccabee galaxy group and develop the armada. He would basically redevelop the military around the area. Andrew continues, the Inkeys and the Norsets have their own intergalactic defense group, like the Macs have Colonel Kirk Johnson, who replaces Billy, and the Earth humans have Alan, and so on. Outside their areas of responsibilities is a large place where the armada operates. The 5 groups would be divided further into 4 geographic areas or quadrants. The list of commanders was given to you for your approval and suggestion as to their assignments. You don't have to act on the request if you don't like. The galaxy group leaders will rotate or be replaced every 4 years, while the next line or group will rotate every 3 years. The people under them will rotate every 2 years. This rotation is important so our people would know all the areas and so we can develop more of our people. The reason for this reorganization is to enable the armada to respond to any particular need in the area. It does not make sense to pull part of the armada in, say, the Maccabee to respond to a crisis in the Bourbon galaxies. Roden said. Roden continues, the roles will be the same except that they would now be dispersed and assigned areas of responsibility. Now Andrew would keep 550 ships and he would move around and address major conflicts. Each galaxy group will be assigned 1,200 ships under 6 area commanders with 200 ships each. Each of these area commanders will have 10 groups of 20 ships under subcommanders assigned by areas. The present armada only has less than 3,500 ships. Where are the other 3,000 ships coming from? Albert said. Roden answered, the Macs are producing almost 1,200 Armada-class ships a year and they agreed to assign the next 1,000 to the Armada and the rest to Kirk. Then the Norsets are producing the same types of ships at 1,800 ships a year and they will give the Armada 1,000 ships and 550 science ships. The Maccabees agreed to contribute their first 1,500 ships using Armada designs. We intend to use our old ships to fill in the number of ships, but ultimately all the ships would be new and using standard Armada designs. There would be extra ships, Albert said. Correct, Albert, and there will be 500 buffer/trainee ships to be used when some of their ships are down or when they need to leave some near a planet or whatever. Then there would be 550 science ships under Ellie. The science ships are assigned to each galaxy group at 100 per group. Ellie would have 50 ships and would join any group depending on the demand. Tonin said. Thank you, Tonin. Now each of the 5 groups would be independent of each of the other groups. They would have their own science officers, their own Armada Academy and training programs, their own logistics and so on. Okay, money. The maintenance of the 7,500 ship Armada as planned comes from the operations of the hops. As you know, almost all of these hops were turned into real estate where people can rent space to sell something or maintain their own private TP route. The amount of money the hop generates is more than twice the amount needed to maintain the Armada at the target level. When Tony finishes with the hop ships in the Maccabee galaxies, which includes all the other alien groups, trade is expected to increase 5-fold at least because now, goods are delivered much faster than before. Andrew explained. Olive showed the existing hop system in the Maccabee galaxies. Andrew continues, this is how the lines look right now. They are becoming really profitable and Tony is responding to requests for more lines, and so we can expect these hops will continue to be very profitable for a long time. Please note that we have not even used any of the Martian ships. So as the Armada gets the new ships, the expenses ramps up, the total funding would be provided for by the hops. There will be 5 Armada academies that will be set up and run by Max Rogan's group. Education will be standardized per species for all Armada functions, from officer programs to technical teams to ground troops. Each academy will have its own training planet. There will also be an officer training programs with a graduate programs for specialized fields. Have you resolved the ranking problem? Chilla asked. Roden faced Chilla and, not yet. The Maccabee ranking has made the list longer. We will have the deployment go on for 2 years and see what will happen to our reorganization. After 2 years, promotions will be issued and by then we would know how we would rank our people. One thing for sure is that the human type of ranking will have to go as far as Armada work is concerned, since this was based on shorter lifespan and shorter service periods. Now service periods will be for a minimum of 100 years and would be integrated in the draft service already in place. It will probably be a cross between the Norset, Talonot and Inky type of ranking where functions are ranked as well. So what happens when the sphere needs to grow, say in this area at the edge of the Maccabee galaxies, because say of a threat needing a solution? Byneton asked Roden. The area commanders will simply respond in full. If the threat is too large for them, the local forces would be added. If the threat is larger, the next area commander is requested to send ships, part or whole. This way the operations of the other commanders are not disrupted unnecessarily. Or Andrew can fly over and help out. I think the plan is good, although I understand that the council can make suggestions on the personnel and deployment, and this is good. Manpat said. I agree with Manpat. Byneton said. Another issue that is a natural consequence of the Maccabee affair is the integration of several new alien life forms into the Armada. As you know, the whole Maccabee galaxy area is like an entirely new world for all of us, which is almost the size of our original sphere. Now the Maccabees have alien friends who would also want to be part of the Armada. Roden explained. They would have to go through the Armada University that Billy and Rogan will establish in a planet near the center of the 2nd and 3rd colonies. Right now Andrew has 9 different species, at least, with the humans and Max counted as one species and with the Talonot and Marantais counted as one also. You have to give credit to the Armada people on how they integrate among themselves well. I believe Billy and Rogan are designing some of the courses along the training programs implemented by the Armada. Chilla declared. That's one way of integration. Another is to look at the alien life forms and determine what they are good at and let them have the opportunity to do those Armada duties they are good at, including devising training programs to let them be better at what they do. Byneton said. Well, that's all of it. You already know the details, so we proceed with the refreshments. Andrew said. Wait, we have not discussed the DG operations. Byneton said. Well, after our little misadventure which bordered on comedy, I think we should let our scientists do their thing for a few months. Andrew said. This time Andrew really did not want to poke his finger in. I think we should send a scout Kligo ship at least one per dimension to recon the place. Deploy probes at 500 MLY apart for all the major galaxies. This will take many months and we give the Kligo ship commanders latitude on how to deal with the galaxies as long as they are within our guidelines. Their first order is really to bring the humans, Macs, Inkies and Norsets together. Since they only have one Kligo ship and about 2,000 men, it will take them months maybe years to accomplish. Roden said. Okay fine, let's poke our finger in all the dimensions. Andrew said. Let's just continue making Kligo ships and deploy them. After a while, say 2 years, we shall have deployed hundreds in the same number of dimensions. Binatan said. Why do we have to do this? Andrew asked suddenly. Roden cared to answer, because we can. I think we could learn something. I am just afraid we might lose our best commanders to these operations. Andrew said. I would send out Kligo ships. Besides, these commanders would become better at their jobs after their DG deployment. After a few years another commander replaces them and they move on to another dimension. Chilla said. The purpose of this meeting is to address the issue of spreading our forces too thinly in our areas of responsibilities. Now the DG operations will decimate our forces even more. Look guys, if you are all really into this DG exploration, you have to do it right, slow and sure. Andrew said. What would you have our DG explorers do? Chilla asked. The first is to establish contact with the Crimson planet. Then connect the Crimsons to the Mac collective, this is key. Then establish a base of operations in a Mac planet and teach the Mac galaxies to build Armada-class ships. We supply the technology and parts through the DG. In less than 2 months the Macs could build at least 3 ships. We can send our Armada people here to man these ships, say up to half of the needed crew size. Then we integrate the Inkies and ask Roden for at least 200 ships for the effort. Then deal with the Norsets and so on. While the Macs are building the ships, the Kligo ship looks for the key players, the GX teams, Roden, and Tonen. These Armada ships, manned by Armada people with ghosts and some local Macs, will be enough to address the Inki problem then the Mort problem of the Norsets. After the Norsets we make sure the humans are brought into the picture. We send our people to train the humans, Inkies and the Norsets and build the Armada from there. Andrew said. See Andrew, you have it all in your head already. And we only deployed one Kligo ship to address the issue of the dimension. After the Armada is set up, our people leaves and goes to the next dimension. Roden said. Just remember our dimension is 36 BLY across and we may be facing issues that will expand this area further out. This DG foray might veer our priorities from where they should be. Andrew said. I think our civilizations are large enough to handle the task. Remember, the Maccabees, all its 4 colonies, has not yet been tapped fully. We just need to develop more key personnel. Roden commented. Of course all dimensions are different and the timelines are also different to a certain degree. In the end we would be helping more people, easing their pain, it's just that they are not in our dimension. Binatan explained. I think that the variation in timelines may account for variations in technologies. We could learn from those who are more advanced and help those in great stress. I also believe that we have a lot of good commanders from all the species. We can train them to be better and after a few months send them through the DGs and do their thing. Of course we monitor their activities. Chilla said. I think that we should also be cognizant of the threat of an interdimension intrusion into our universe coming from other dimensions with DG technologies. Andrew added. And a good offense is the best defense. When we go into the DG, we are also ensuring in a way the protection of our own dimension. We might even find another dimension that is a threat to ours and deal with them before they even cross into our dimension. Roden said. Knowing Billy, he probably is doing something about this as we speak. Andrew said. So the threat would be from the Maccabees of the other dimension. Like if the Emperor on the other side got hold of the technology they could intrude into our world. But that is if they get our right address. But then if it is possible then it could happen. So venturing into other Maccabee worlds may provide us with the warning intel. Roden said. Okay, I'm convinced. So who would be in charge of this DG operations? Andrew asked. It's an Armada operation so it's you, who else? Roden as he looked at Andrew. Andrew was quiet. I will help you Andrew, I may not be a good strategist but I am good with operations. Manpat said. See. Look, I will support you all the way. I just think that the DG science teams be consolidated under Ellie so all activities are centralized and since Ellie and her group works under you then it results to better operational control. Remember the Armada scientists are the most well-rounded among our scientists because they have experienced the dangerous engagement and they are familiar in a way with almost all the technologies from almost all the alien groups. They are used to working under pressure and being in the firing line. Chilla said. I agree with the consolidation and I appreciate your role, Manpat. Look, Andrew, my friend, tell me, when did I ever not support you in anything? Roden asked. I guess I can't think of an occasion right now where you did not support me. But that does not mean you always did. The group laughs. As we recently concluded, DG locations in our universe determine the location of the openings in the other dimensions. And since Andrew has determined the priorities, namely the Mac and Crimson link and the Maccabee threat source, I would suggest we concentrate our teams into these two activities. Binatan said. I agree with you, Binatan. Chilla said. So I will assume that Ellie would have to consolidate the data from all these DG expeditions where she has allocated her top people. I will give you a list of commanders for the DG teams per galaxy group. Andrew said. I would suggest you start with your top field commanders. We don't want to mess up by using less capable leaders at the outset. Manpat said. Very good, Manpat. Roden agreed. People. How many people can we allocate to these DG operations within, say, 2 months? Andrew asked. I can mobilize and train 5 million in 2 months. Chilla said. Andrew, we already have 200 million supporting the Armada, we can allocate 20 million of these number immediately. Manpat said. I think 5 million Norsets would be available in 2 months. Tonin said. I think we can send 5 million Inkeys and 10 million Max also in 2 months. Roden added. I think we can match Manpat's 20 million. Gilkin said. I never realized we can have that much number. Anyway, let me define our problems. The Talonot problem requires tagging and the sugar box. The Norsets require tagging and plasma cannons, the Maccabees need tagging and bombers, and in some credible threats, a strike team. These are our immediate problems. There are of course a lot of other problems like slavery, rebellion, and wars among species, but these 3 should be our priority since they will impact the galaxies more if they are not resolved, and that the Maccabee pose a threat to our universe because they have the DG technology from the other side. Andrew sipped on his coffee cup. Andrew continues, now we really do not need Kligo ships in our forays, we just need to teach the Max how to build Armada-class ships, integrate them with the Norsets to increase their manufacturing capabilities and the Inkeys for the ship engine and TP technologies, and the ships will be built. So the first order of the day would be to send out millions of taggers to the Norsets, Talonots, and Maccabees. Then we have to look for the missing players like Roden and the Armada personalities. All personnel must be Crimson invisible, that is why we need to establish our ties with the Crimsons on the other side early on. The tagging operations will last for a month given the volume of taggers. So we insert our taggers through the DGs into the Maccabee galaxies? Chilla asked to confirm. Yes. And all our taggers must bring portable TPs into the battlefield. Ellie, how many Crimson planets have we visited already? Andrew answered. More than 360 different Crimson planets. We have devoted 2 DG for the Trunties alone to find their Crimson counterpart in the other dimensions. We located our DG ships near our Crimson planet with 5 Armada ships as security. And they have become experts in locating the planets and making first contact. We also found out that the larger Crimsons can squeeze themselves through the opening up to a certain size. Once on the other side, we beam the Trunties inside them and then our Crimsons just transport themselves to the Crimson planet. Once the Trunties are on the planet, they signal us and we open a DG near where they are on the planet and establish the location in our side of the DG. Ellie explained. So the first order of the day is to mobilize all the personnel we would be allocating to the DG operations so we can organize them and train them properly on the tasks involved. I would suggest we look for a planet in our dimension that is nearest to the target dimensions. It would be easier to train and then deploy the taggers and bombers if they are inserted with the least amount of travel time. Manpat said. That is the Armada way, Manpat. Andrew said. Yes, we can develop an already developed planet for the purpose. We can start with a viable number, say 6 million, then work up from there. I think our experienced Armada taggers be promoted to team leaders so they can train people under them. I think we can spare 1 million experienced taggers from our field operatives, then assign them to train 6 people each. Roden added. I think 2 months of training would be needed to keep them up to newbie level. The training of the bomber would be different, and I think the Armada has at least 500,000 experienced bombers. We can have them train 6 persons each also. Given the number of taggers and bombers that will go through these locations, we should plan on developing the infrastructure needed to support our increasing troop levels for the long haul. Linda said. I will take care of the infrastructure in all 3 locations. Ellie, identify these 3 locations and we will send our people to start building the needed support infrastructure for our troops. Chilla said and Ellie nodded. In the meantime, we can just move our ships to these locations so we can train our existing personnel about the new tasks coming their way. We should also send out existing taggers and bombers over to the other side to gain experience in operating in a new environment. I would also send one DG ship near Earth so we can look for the key Armada personalities. We can deploy all our Kligo ships through the Crimson location to look for Roden. Andrew said. So we send out bombers and taggers and not make contact with the other species? Byneton asked. The approach would be different in each case. For the Norsets, we would have to make contact because we would be installing plasma cannons and introduce them to the Max and Inkeys. We may not make first contact with the Talonauts until we finish with the tagging and bombing. We may not make contact with the Maccabees because of the spy problem. We will just tag the enemy, then once we are done then we send in a Kligo ship to execute. Again, Billy may be doing something about this already, I am sure of it. Andrew said. Billy has not told me anything so far. What would you think he would be doing right now? Chilla asked. Andrew looked at Tony. If I know Billy, he would already assume there is a credible threat from the other Maccabee dimensions. He would send infiltrators and gather intel maybe for a few months. If he finds credible threats, he will act on them immediately. Or his people would act immediately. By the time you come back to meet with him he would tell you of his plans or accomplishments. Tony responded. And what plans would these be? Chilla asked. If the threat is credible, a strike team to dispose of the leaders of the other side. For those where the threat is building, the targets would be less but a strike team will be deployed, nonetheless. You could also say that his people would be the movers and they will immediately act on their own without Billy's instructions. Andrew explained. You mean he will send people to the other side to kill the leaders? I better get hold of him. Chilla said. He probably has the teams lined up and prepared already. He may have even sent out some teams to get the lay of the land so to speak. And as I said earlier, his people may have done something already. Tony explained. I wouldn't really worry about what Billy will do. He and his people will do the right thing. Andrew said. Okay, going back to our deployment from our side of the universe. The Kligo ships should have hundreds of TPs to do the job in the right amount of time. In the Norset operations we had at least 60 ships and each of our ships had dozens of TPs. This problem will magnify itself in the Tosban and Maccabee operations. Ellie said. How about cleanup and refugee work? We need our Marines to clean up the ships of enemy units. We need them to clean up and hold ground installations. I think we can tag and bomb but we cannot execute properly without the proper logistics. Linda explained. I think we should be patient in our operations. Until the Max and Norsets build the Armada ships, our hands are tied. Roden said. Or we could build a temporary base preferably deep underground and have hundreds of our TPs installed there. In case of the Maccabees, we may need several bases. Andrew said. Boss, after the Talonnaut operations, without following up with the Tosbans, we would be leaving them vulnerable. It's either we do it well or not at all. Linda said. I think Roden is right and Linda is right also. Ellie pointed to a flaw. We are artists in our work, we strive for perfection in all our work. Let's just do one universe and let all our people learn from there. Then we do another with a few trainees, then another. Going full speed ahead with millions of trainees is a dangerous way to go. Andrew explained. Lasheen raised her hand. May I? You only need to help one dimension, then another one, then maybe another without rushing but in carefully thought of steps. What will happen after the third dimension would be that the operating capabilities are now increased, maybe even doubled, because one of the other dimension universe will get into the game, maybe the first one we went to will do this. The next foray will increase the capabilities even more or maybe triple of the initial capabilities and so on. But each dimension is unique and the problems require unique solutions as well. But after the first one, the capability to react would be better and we would be able to perform better in future forays because now we have an ally dimension. Remember, we have the benefit of hindsight and this is our biggest advantage. Andrew looked at her. Very good, Lex. Lasheen smiled. Roden nodded approval. The first foray must then be the best we can have. Remember, we would be developing an ally. And this requires some careful study involving a decent number of possibilities. Linda said. So are we still going through with our training plans in the 3 major locations? Chilla asked. I think we should hold off on this option at the moment. As I said earlier, we move our ships near the deployment locations. I think that if we assign 2 trainees to each of our taggers and bombers in all the Armada ships, that would add more than 2 million in personnel. And it would be an on-the-job training, which would be better. In the meantime, we can incorporate this program in the training programs our people are presently conducting in the Maccabee First Colony. I will advise Billy on this. I think that you should expand the training programs under Billy to say to at least 10 million. Andrew answered. Yes, I believe that is a critical project that will have a large impact in the future of the Armada in our galaxies. Chilla agreed. Sarudam batted in, so can we eat now? The steaks are all ready. The group laughed. Manpat looked at Sarudam. You were here the whole time and the only words you say is about food. I can smell the steaks and we do not want the steaks to wait. Vicky has just finished setting up the food table with largely vegetarian dishes and some pasta. The girls moved over to that table to get their food. Manpat and Sarudam got mostly meats as did most of the guys except Roden and Gantley. Are you going with us down to Earth, Vicky? Chilla asked. No, I have to take Adam to the doctor for his checkup. But Julia will go with you and the girls. I've looked at the online catalogs and there are hundreds of bags, dresses, shoes, jewelries and accessories I liked. But Linda told me it would be most fun going around and actually feeling the items. I am sure you will have the most fun shopping. She told her of their remote shopping experience using the ship AIs and she assured her the feeling is not the same. So Harold, how is the presidency going? Roden asked. Roden, Manpat, we may have to talk in a few weeks. I plan to out this in a few months. Maybe before the end of the year or right after the holidays. Harold said. Anything you need, Harold. I'm your man. Andrew said. Just tell me and I will do whatever you like. Roden added. I recall having told Albert that I want to help. Manpat said. If everything goes well, it would be painless and boring like your lives, Andrew. Harold said. What? Did you go through the Crimson also, Harold? Manpat asked. He did, and it's an unfair advantage. Albert answered him. Unfair? Because you had no Crimson when you were president. They laugh. We actually imposed a no telepathic conversation rule in the White House like you have in your Armada, sir. Marijas told Andrew. She looked around and the Secretary of State was over at Julia's table and the Vice President was beside Timmy. So Julia, how are the galaxies these days? Jim asked. I am enjoying my job actually. It's like an endless learning curve for me. Harold, you have to think about having the Crimson alter the minds of those guys in Congress and Senate. Andrew commented. I agree, and include all the lobbyist groups and non-profits. Albert said. I am actually thinking about it. Maybe for those most evil in their ways. Harold said. They are all evil, Harold. Andrew said and they all laughed. I would. Roden said. I talk to and try hard to vet my leaders. I am not always right but they know how I operate and if they do not toe the line, Sarudam deals with them. Manpat said. Sarudam was silently eating his favorite tri-tips. I usually bite their arms off. He finally said and they all laugh. The women promptly left for their shopping spree on Earth while Vicky left with the Mac nanny for the doctor. The guys were left and they grouped into one long table to drink the new Boofing brandy. Since the Armada will take the first few venture into the DG, why don't you come with us, Roden? Let's do our thing just like old times. Andrew said. I really would like that. I really like to do that. But my hands are tied. Gantley is so lucky to be doing this. Andrew, I would like to go. Rogan said. Sure, buddy. Anything you like. I can give you a ship. No, I will just ride with you. I am sure I will enjoy pestering you to get back at you for all the things you did to me. The group laughed. Ambassador Gilkin, have you sent the 10,000 TPs we requested last month? Manpat asked. Yes, they should be arriving shortly. So you're telling me the 5,000 we sent earlier are all in use already? Yes, that was for the Talonauts alone. And they were not even enough. We need the next shipment for the Datuans, Tosbans and all the other alien species around us, and they are a lot. We have even deployed hop ships all the way to the Gribs and the Crintelis. It's an entirely large world back home spanning 3 BLY. We decided recently that we now want to use all the Datuan ships as hop ships. I understand. Okay, we will send another 25,000 to make your TPs redundant and less overloaded, but you would have to send your transport ships to get them from our storage planet. Talk to the Norsets on how to transport them through the hops. I would like to pay you in gold and 3 cargo ships will arrive in a week at your capital planet. We have no use for gold. You don't have to pay us. Manpat, remember, all revenues from the hops real estate goes to support the local Armada. Make sure the Armada is self-supporting and have the ability to expand in the future. Precisely, Andrew. It's a synergy. So Junie, how is your new planet doing? Byneton asked. You have a new planet? Roden followed. Yes, we took over a very nice planet 10 MLY from our old planet and our people are absolutely into the colonization. And they don't even need starships to go to the planet. People go in through the TPs and emerge in the planet. I was also able to unite with the other countries and this supported our colonization efforts. It's good that they joined you, Binaton commented. It helps if they see starships hovering around. But it was a chore getting rid of their bad habits. Junie said and the group laughed. Daisy appeared and talked with Albert. Albert stood, okay guys, I have to leave, duty calls. Andrew noticed Tony, Eric and Roger were talking to Prince Bominat and Akinpat. He approached the group and overheard they wanted to go to Earth and go to Las Vegas to gamble and see how the casinos operate. Guys, why don't you bring Bronny with you? He might win the grand prize this time. Olive, give these guys credit cards to use. Sure boss. Bronny come overia. Eric exclaimed. A week later,